All right, let's settle in. Tonight, we are going to explore the intensely hot and soot-covered life of an individual who literally forged the medieval world, the blacksmith. You have likely seen them in films, hammering glowing iron in slow motion as sparks fly majestically through the air. But you can be sure that being a real medieval blacksmith was nothing like a dramatic training montage. It was a dirty, exhausting, and blister-inducing profession, and for the most part, it was an incredibly difficult existence. So, before you get too comfortable, please feel free to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I am creating here. I would also love to know where you're listening from and what time it is for you in the comments. It is always so fascinating to see our community connecting from all corners of the globe. For now, go ahead and dim your lights. Maybe switch on a fan for that gentle background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. You were born into the noble and soot-covered lineage of medieval blacksmiths. There were no crowns, no lands, no fancy titles, just the family forge, blisters in the shape of an anvil, and the permanent scent of roasted iron that seemed to be baked into your baby blanket. From the moment you could walk without stumbling into the fire pit, you were expected to help. By the age of 6, you were officially your father's apprentice, which was a polite medieval term for a tiny, unpaid assistant with no rights and permanent streaks of soot on your face. Your toys were tongs. Your playground was a dirt floor next to a furnace hot enough to singe your eyebrows. While the other children in the village were chasing chickens and skipping stones, you were learning how not to die next to molten metal. Your games included: guess how hot this is with your hand, hold the hammer until your arms fall off, and try not to cry when you mess up the nail again. Your father, the blacksmith, was a terrifying, muscular man whose entire vocabulary seemed to consist of sighs, grunts, and the phrase, "hit it harder." He had hands like gnarled tree bark and a permanent scowl that was etched on his face by decades of smoke exposure and relentless tax collectors. He taught you everything: how to shape iron, how to fuel the fire, and how to keep your mouth shut when a knight insulted your work. You did not ask questions. You simply watched, learned, and obeyed, mostly because asking questions usually resulted in a flying horseshoe and a week of the silent treatment. Holidays? Pleasant idea, but they did not exist for you. The forge never rested, and neither did you. Someone always needed something sharpened, repaired, or reforged. You quickly learned that free time was just the space between one demanding job and the next. And while you were technically learning a trade, what you were really gaining was a high tolerance for pain, a resistance to heat, and the ability to fall asleep while standing up. By the time you turned 10, you already smelled distinctly of iron, swore like a seasoned miner, and had arms strong enough to carry water buckets that weighed more than your dog. Assuming the dog had not run away from the constant noise 2 years earlier, this was your life now. Welcome to the family business. I hope you enjoy sweat, smoke, and a lifetime of chronic back pain. If you thought you would get to enjoy a few years of carefree playtime before the hammer truly came down, you were mistaken. Childhood in the world of a medieval blacksmith was more of a theoretical idea than an actual phase of life. The moment you could lift a bucket without falling over, you were immediately put to work. Forget about games, toys, or any idea of fun. Your playroom was a smoke-stained shed filled with sharp objects and open flames. Your jungle gym was a rack of tongs positioned dangerously close to a pit of glowing coals. One wrong step, and you would get an unscheduled lesson in how long your skin can sizzle before your father finally noticed. Your official job title might have been apprentice, but what it really meant was, do every task that no one else wants to do and still be constantly reprimanded. You diligently stoked the fire, pumped the bellows, swept the floor, meticulously cleaned the tools, res-tacked the coal, and tried not to get impaled by a falling horseshoe. All of this before breakfast. You were paid in food, stern nods, and the occasional grunt of mild approval, which, in blacksmith language, meant, you did not completely ruin that today. Meanwhile, the village children you once knew were out in the fields, maybe casually throwing sticks or learning how to milk goats. You envied them. Even if they smelled vaguely of cheese and manure, they might grow up to be farmers or shepherds. Humble professions for sure, but ones that involved fewer glowing weapons and unexpected burns. You, on the other hand, were learning to meticulously forge nails by hand. Nails, thousands of them, bent, twisted, and repeatedly reheated until they were straight enough to hold together some lord's chicken coop. If you were lucky, your father would let you use a hammer on your own, right after pointing out every single mistake you were making. And do not even think about saying, "I'm tired." That phrase was forbidden in the forge. Fatigue was a weakness. Burnout was for candles. You kept swinging, kept sweating, and kept smiling. Or at least you did not cry where anyone could see you. Because in the eyes of your master, who was also your father, you were no longer a child. You were a blacksmith in training. And the rigorous training never truly ended. The forge was not just your workplace. It was your entire existence. It completely dominated your senses, reshaped your muscles, and profoundly rewired your brain. By the time you reached your teens, it did not just feel like a physical place. It felt like a living creature, a hot, smoky, temperamental beast that you had to diligently feed, control, and fear. You knew its sounds intimately. The wheezing of the bellows, the hissing of hot iron as it was quenched in water, and the sharp, rhythmic clang of a hammer on metal that echoed like a distant war drum. There was a certain rhythm to it, like some brutal medieval symphony, and your body moved in perfect time with it, whether you were fully awake or half asleep. You eventually stopped noticing the intense heat. This was not because it got any easier. It was because you had simply accepted its presence, much like gravity or taxes. You instinctively knew which stones were too hot to sit on, which coals burned the most efficiently, and which parts of the dirt floor were subtly trying to attack your feet. Your skin was permanently darkened from the pervasive smoke, not from the sun. Your clothes, the same soot-stained tunic and leather apron you wore every single day, smelled like a strange mix of scorched wool, grease, and quiet desperation. You did not own many things, but you definitely owned this forge. Not officially, of course, your father technically still owned it, but in practical terms, it completely owned you. You started to forget what silence sounded like. The hiss, the clang, the crackle, it was a constant symphony. When the forge did fall quiet, it was almost unsettling. You would find yourself twitching, as if you were missing a beat in a song you had been forced to memorize since you were a child. Your friends, if you had managed to keep any, rarely saw you. "He's probably at the forge," became your default status. You were not a blacksmith. You were the forge, a two-legged extension of raw fire and unyielding steel. And strangely, a part of you began to cherish it. Not the painful burns, not the throbbing blisters, but the deep satisfaction when a shape finally came out right, when a horseshoe fit perfectly, when a newly forged blade gleamed with precision, when the stubborn metal bent exactly to your will. For a brief moment, you were not just a child covered in soot. You were a true creator, a skilled crafter, an essential part of the intricate medieval machine. Then the moment passed, the next order arrived, and the fire roared to life once more. Time to get back to work. By the time your friends were just starting to have their teenage growth spurts, your limbs already felt like they had been through a long siege. While they were getting taller and stronger, you were becoming stooped, scarred, and perpetually stiff. Your arms were undeniably thick, but not in a heroic, knight lifting a shining sword kind of way. They were more like a teenager who has been repeatedly assaulted by anvils. Your back was a profound tragedy, hunched from tirelessly carrying metal and bending over the forge for hours every day. Your knees creaked audibly every time you crouched. Your shoulders popped with a disconcerting sound every time you lifted a hammer, which happened every few seconds, making it a constant part of your personal soundtrack. And your hands, let's really look at your hands. You once had fingers. Now you have iron-tipped claws. They are blistered, cracked, and stained with soot so deeply ingrained that even the mighty Nile could not wash it away. Cuts are a common occurrence. Burns are a daily reality, and half of your fingernails are permanently blackened or completely missing. You once crushed your thumb so badly that it turned black for 2 weeks. You did not stop working. You just switched hands and grunted more than usual. Cuts are constant. Sometimes it is a chipped edge, sometimes a file bites you, sometimes the unyielding iron fights back. Every week, something on your hands leaks blood. You wrap it in a scrap of cloth, mutter a curse under your breath, and keep working. Worse still are the burns. Some are mild, serving as minor reminders that molten iron shows no forgiveness. Others are more severe, the kind that sizzle, bubble, and leave permanent scars that tell their own painful stories. You have branded yourself more often than a cattle farmer, and at this point, you are not even angry about it. You have simply gotten used to it. Your grip strength is the only physical attribute that has really improved. You can effortlessly crush walnuts as if they owe you money. But dexterity? That has long since vanished. You frequently drop things. Your fingers tremble when it is cold. You are only 30, but you have the hands of a 70-year-old knight who tragically lost 3 wars and now gambles at tavern dice for a bowl of soup. But despite all of this, these hands are what ultimately keep you alive. They meticulously shape swords, dutifully fix hinges, and firmly grasp the hammer that upholds your hard-earned reputation. They constantly ache, but they diligently work. Because in this life, it does not matter how broken your body feels, as long as you can still swing that hammer. And the most disheartening part? You are only just beginning. In most professions, smoke is an unfortunate problem. In your line of work, it is a constant coworker, and a particularly rude one at that. The forge is not just hot. It is a choking chamber, and every breath you take is seasoned with the distinct aroma of coal dust, scorched metal, ash, and profound regret. If you can see more than 6 feet in front of you, congratulations, it probably means someone forgot to light the fire. There is no proper chimney, just a crude hole in the roof that lets more smoke billow into the forge than it lets out. You think about opening a window. There is no window, just soot-blackened walls, the persistent sound of your father's coughing, and the occasional gust of wind that manages to blow everything right into your eyes anyway. Your lungs? Let's just say they have entered a long-term, undeniably toxic relationship with smoke. First, it burns. Then it irritates. Then, one day, it just becomes a normal, accepted part of your life. Persistent coughing fits become part of the daily rhythm. Black mucus? Not ideal for sure, but at least it is consistent. You have reached a point where clean air feels strangely suspicious. Even your voice changes. You start to sound like a 60-year-old goat farmer who lives on boiling tar. Words come out scratchier, breaths are shorter, and your throat always feels like it is hosting a perpetual dust storm. But you keep working because you have no other choice. And it is not just the smoke from the fire. There is also fine metal dust from grinding, acrid oil fumes from quenching, and occasionally the stench of burnt leather, charred wood, or whatever unfortunate thing accidentally fell into the glowing coals. You have probably inhaled 3 different types of poison before noon. Protective gear? Please. A simple rag tied crudely around your face is the best you can do, and even that becomes sweaty, disgustingly saturated, and somehow smells worse than the smoke itself. You take it off and suddenly it is a little harder to breathe, but at least you are not gagging on your own sweat. Long-term health damage? Absolutely. Asthma, black lung, and early death, these are all part of the career package. But you are not worried about long-term consequences. You are just focused on finishing that gate hinge before your father notices how crooked it is. In the world of a medieval blacksmith, air is just another burden. You do not breathe to survive. You breathe to keep hammering. By now, you have developed an intimate relationship with your tools. A bond that is mostly forged through pain, necessity, and mutual disrespect. Your hammer? It is basically an extension of your arm. You have named it, you have cursed it, and you have swung it so many times that your shoulder now clicks audibly when you raise it, like a haunted maraca. But without it, you are just a sweaty person standing in a smoke-filled hut. The hammer turns you into a blacksmith, and it also consistently makes you bleed. Then there are your tongs. Clumsy, always hot, and always managing to pinch you at the exact wrong moment. You have burned your fingertips more times than you have successfully picked up anything. The hot iron slips, your grip fails, you instinctively yell, and your father usually tells you to. Grip it like you mean it. You seriously think about throwing them into the roaring fire just to teach them a lesson. Your chisel? It was once sharp. Now it is mostly a vague suggestion of a blade, having been used to shape, split, scrape, and occasionally pry open stubborn stuck doors when your neighbor's lock breaks. Files, awls, punch tools, rivet sets, your entire tool bench looks like a medieval torture rack, and frankly, it kind of works like one. You have been jabbed, crushed, pinched, sliced, and even impaled by pretty much every item you own. Your fingers now have their own memory. They instinctively flinch at the mere sight of a new tool. Your apron? It is supposed to protect you, and it does to a degree if by protect you mean effectively catch hot metal shards and hold them firmly against your body like a smoldering, uncomfortable hug. It is more scorched than stitched, and the worn leather gets as stiff as a corpse every winter. And yet, despite all of this, you meticulously care for these tools as if they were cherished family members. You sharpen them, oil them, and line them up carefully each night. Because if one of them breaks, your work stops. You can't work, you can't earn, you can't eat. No tool, no income. So yes, your tools are your livelihood. But do not be fooled. They have also declared war on your fingers, your spine, and your sanity. Every single day they subtly whisper, "We help you survive, but we will also slowly destroy you." And you, with a sigh, respond, "Yeah, that sounds about right. Now pass the hammer." You do not wear a crown, wield a shining sword, or lead armies. But without you, the entire village would stop working by Tuesday. You are the blacksmith, and everyone needs you, constantly, for absolutely everything. You are the medieval equivalent of customer service, tech support, and roadside assistance all rolled into one soot-covered figure who always smells of smoke and quiet desperation. The knight needs a new sword? You make it. The farmer breaks a plow? You fix it. A monk's bell cracks. A baker's oven door jams. A shepherd's gate latch will not close? Guess who gets the urgent call? That is right. You. Every single time. And they all act as if you have been just sitting around waiting for their specific problem. They show up unannounced, interrupting your work mid-swing, covered in mud and a sense of entitlement. "I know you're busy," they start, "but could you just, that insidious phrase that constantly haunts you. But here is the truly frustrating part. You are almost never explicitly thanked. They just assume it is your duty, that you were born to serve. If their hoe works right, their door closes securely, or their shield withstands a blow, they just nod curtly and walk away, as if you were the lucky one, as if you should feel honored to fix their rusty bucket at sunset for half a loaf of stale bread. Payment is often wildly inconsistent, sometimes in coin, sometimes in goods, and sometimes in vague promises that they conveniently forget by the next market day. One time, a man paid you with a dead chicken. "Good for soup," he said. It most certainly was not. You are also the default fixer for problems that are definitely not your fault. Bent hinges from someone foolishly sitting on a gate? You fix it. A broken dagger from a drunken brawl? You fix it. A mysterious piece of iron that no one can identify but absolutely must be fixed? Yep, that is still on you. Yet, when the village praises anyone, it is always the knight, the priest, or the miller with the unusually fat goat. You are just background noise, a necessary utility, a reliable tool, not a person. But here is the secret you know. They would not last a single week without your tireless work. Their fields would grind to a halt. Their homes would fall apart. Their horses would limp in agony. And while they may never write songs about your hammer, their entire world is quietly and dependably held together by your calloused hands. You would think that peace would be great news. No raiders, no bandits, no screaming noblemen demanding a new sword by sundown. But for you, the blacksmith, peace is terrible for business. Because while you certainly work on plows and hinges, what really pays the bills is war. When a conflict starts, everyone desperately needs you. Weapons, armor, arrowheads by the hundreds. Even horseshoes wear out faster under the stress of panicked cavalry charges. You are flooded with work. The forge burns brighter, and the coins flow in steadily. You may be completely exhausted, but your belly is full, and your debt to the alehouse is momentarily forgotten. But then the war ends. The local lord declares a truce, the knights stop marching, and suddenly your orders disappear. No more swords, no more helmets. Just a farmer asking if you can sharpen a sickle and maybe take 3 meager onions as payment. And sure, you can make household goods, cauldrons, door handles, cooking spits, but there is very little profit in it. Everyone expects you to work with the skill of a wizard, but they only want to pay you like a stable boy. You are forced to become a shrewd negotiator, a humble beggar, and a cunning merchant all at once, haggling for decent wages as if your forge were just a stall at the market. And do not even think about raising your prices. People will glare at you as if you have just cursed their cow. But you're just hammering metal, they will say, as if molten iron just bends itself into shape while singing church hymns. You start to miss the chaos. Not the bloodshed, not the burning villages, but the steady flow of orders. The purpose, the exhilarating rush when knights lined up outside your forge with dented shields and full coin purses. You actually mattered. Now you are making keys for locked doors that no one bothers to lock, patching pots that should have been thrown away long ago, and fixing tools so old they belong in a museum, not a field. Peace for everyone else means safety and much-needed rest. For you, it means acute economic anxiety and gnawing hunger. And deep down, though you would never say it out loud, a part of you silently whispers, wouldn't mind a small skirmish, just a little one, maybe a minor border dispute, because when swords break, you eat. Some jobs have a definite end, a clear finish line, a task that is completed and followed by well-deserved rest, applause, or at least a warm bowl of stew. Blacksmithing is definitely not one of those jobs. Your work is never finished. Not today, not tomorrow, not even in your restless dreams. You manage to fix one thing and 3 more things break. Patch a gate hinge, the wheel inexplicably falls off the cart. Finish a batch of nails, someone immediately shows up demanding 10 more, insisting they be longer this time, and also adding, I can't possibly pay you until after the harvest. You get up before the sun comes up and you finally go to sleep long after it has disappeared behind the trees. And even then, your brain keeps hammering. You dream of wheezing bellows, showering sparks, and that one persistent customer who still owes you a half-dozen eggs and a proper thank you. Even the quick jobs are never quick. A villager walks in holding a mangled rake. It just needs a little fixing, they say innocently, but you know that means 2 grueling hours of reshaping, reheating, hammering, and politely nodding as they repeatedly ask, is it ready yet? Every 5 minutes. And just when you think you can finally sit down, maybe have a drink that is not lukewarm and smoky, your apprentice comes running. The farrier's sick. You need to shoe the horse, he says. Of course you do, because you are the blacksmith, and in this town, blacksmith is another word for everyone else's last resort. The forge needs your constant attention. The fire will not stoke itself. The tools will rust if you neglect them. Your anvil subtly shifts in the oppressive summer heat. Your bellows crack ominously in the brutal winter cold. Everything around you is either actively falling apart or constantly threatening to. Even holidays offer no break from the work. Sunday is technically a day of rest, unless, of course, someone's ox cart breaks down on the way to the market. Then suddenly you are in your apron, half awake, fervently praying the priest does not happen to walk by while you are hammering on the Lord's day. You do not have a to-do list. That would imply that there is a point when all the tasks will be crossed off. There is not, because blacksmithing is not just a job. It is a relentless cycle. Work, fix, repeat, until your body finally gives out or your hammer finally breaks. And the strangest part? You secretly find a strange satisfaction in it. You would think that pounding hot iron all day would earn you at least 2 basic things: a satisfying meal and a solid night's sleep. Wrong. In the hard life of a medieval blacksmith, food and rest are not guaranteed. They are luxuries, much like clean water or polite customers. You work from sunup to sundown, burning calories at an incredible rate, like a runaway horse, and what do you get in return? A piece of coarse bread, a bowl of cold pottage that might have yesterday's turnip in it, and maybe, just maybe, a small piece of salted pork if it is a special day, which, predictably, it is not. You eat standing up, with one hand still holding tongs, and the other shielding your meager food from the forge's ever-present ash. Meals are rushed, conversations are reduced to grunts, and if someone knocks urgently on the door mid-bite because their latch is stuck, guess what? That stew you were about to enjoy instantly turns cold. You do not eat for pleasure. You eat only for survival. Fuel in, hammer out. Now, let's talk about sleep, or the cruel imitation of it. When you finally crawl into bed, your hands are throbbing relentlessly. Your back feels like it lost a brutal bar fight, and your ears are still ringing from a full day of iron symphonies. Your bed is a straw-stuffed sack that is either too lumpy, too flat, or full of mysterious crawling things. Your blanket is a scorched wool sheet that smells faintly of forged smoke, stale ale, and deep regret. And just as your eyelids start to close, your brain suddenly remembers that order you forgot to finish, or that hinge that cracked in a weird way, or the payment you still have not gotten for that wagon wheel 3 weeks ago. Sleep becomes a constant negotiation. You lie awake, tossing, turning, carefully calculating how long you can possibly put off repairs without someone aggressively banging on your door at dawn. And do not forget the inevitable midnight surprises. Someone's horse throws a shoe, a sudden storm rips a door off its hinges, or a noble sword urgently needs to be sharpened before a hunt. Because, obviously, you are not allowed to rest. You learn to live on scraps and brief moments, stolen bites, short half-naps, and sheer, unyielding stubbornness. Because in your world, productivity always comes before nourishment, and deadlines always take precedence over peaceful sleep. Food and sleep are not breaks from the job. They are just forced intermissions between relentless hammer swings. You eat when you can, sleep when you are reluctantly allowed, and fervently hope the fire does not go out while you are dreaming. There was a time when your hands were soft. Once, a long time ago, maybe in early childhood. Now they are permanently ruined. Your fingers have physically turned into tools themselves. Stiff, swollen, cracked, and so calloused that they barely feel anything, except painfully when they ache. You can't hold a quill properly. You can barely lace your own boots. But you can confidently grab red-hot tongs with the casual confidence of someone who has been burned so often that pain has lost its original meaning. Every single joint in your hands audibly pops when you move. Your knuckles look like they have been repeatedly hit with a hammer. Your palms are a detailed map of blisters, old, new, layered like tree rings. Need to know what season it is? Just check the blister count. More than 5? It is definitely summer. You have lost fingernails more than once. Some came off cleanly, others did not. You once crushed your thumb so badly that it turned black for 2 weeks. You did not stop working. You just switched hands and grunted with more intensity than usual. Cuts are a constant reality. Sometimes it is a chipped edge, sometimes a file bites you, sometimes the unyielding iron actively fights back. Every single week, something on your hands profusely leaks blood. You wrap it in a scrap of cloth, mutter a curse under your breath, and keep working. Worse still are the burns. Some are mild, serving as minor, persistent reminders that hot iron shows no mercy. Others are more severe, the kind that sizzle, bubble, and leave permanent scars that eloquently tell their own stories. You have branded yourself more times than a cattle farmer, and at this point, you are not even angry about it. You have simply gotten used to it. Your grip strength is the only physical attribute that has noticeably improved. You can effortlessly crush walnuts as if they owe you money. But dexterity? That has long since vanished. You frequently drop things. Your fingers visibly shake when it is cold. You are only 30 years old, but you have the hands of a 70-year-old knight who tragically lost 3 wars and now plays tavern dice for soup. But despite it all, these hands are what fundamentally keep you alive. They meticulously shape swords, dutifully fix hinges, and firmly hold the hammer that upholds your reputation. They constantly ache, but they unfailingly work. Because in this demanding life, it does not matter how broken your body feels, as long as you can still swing. Let's be honest, you do not smell pleasant. In fact, you have not smelled clean since you were 5 years old. The moment you officially became your father's apprentice, your personal scent permanently changed to unwashed ashtray mixed with burnt bacon and desperation. Welcome to blacksmith life, where no matter how hard you scrub, you will always smell like fire. The forge burns all day, and so, in a way, do you. The pervasive smoke deeply soaks into your clothes, your hair, and your skin. Your sweat does not even smell like normal sweat anymore. It is more like smoked meat that has been left out in the warm spring. You could, in theory, take a bath, but baths are a rare luxury. The water is always cold, and you are working tirelessly 6 days a week, covered in soot, grease, and coal dust before the sun has even fully risen. So what is the point? You would be filthy again by breakfast. Your clothes offer no relief. You wear the same singed tunic and scorched leather apron every single day. They have not been truly clean since the last festival, and even then, someone managed to spill ale on them before noon. Now they just hang on your body like a hardened, protective layer of accumulated funk. You try perfume? Forget it. It disappears within 10 minutes before the relentless forge devours it whole. Flowers wilt when you are near. Bread goes stale with unnerving speed. Cats hiss when you pass by. And the most uncomfortable part? People definitely notice. You walk into the tavern, and the crowd parts as if you were Moses parting the Red Sea. The innkeeper instinctively knows to seat you in the farthest corner, near a window if at all possible. Not out of courtesy, but for sheer survival. No one wants to share a bench with the human embodiment of a burnt fence post. Still, you accept it in stride. A little shame is better than being completely unnoticed. You are known. People say, "That's the blacksmith," with a strange mix of respect and nasal discomfort. You may not be the most charming person in town, but you are undeniably the most aromatic. Besides, smelling of fire means you have been working hard. Smelling of iron means you have been skillfully crafting. And smelling of sweat-soaked leather dipped in soot and deep regret? Well, that just means you are a professional. You did not choose this life. The forge chose you, through your father's calloused hands and the heavy iron expectations that were passed down like a rusty heirloom. And now you are doing the exact same thing. Your son does not play with wooden swords or run wild through the fields. He fetches coal, pumps the bellows, and holds the tongs steady while sparks rain down, and you quietly tell him, "Don't flinch." He is maybe 7 years old, but he already has the distinct smell of burnt metal and wet burlap. You feel a twinge of guilt, but only a small one, because you are not being cruel. You are just preparing him. This is the family trade. This is survival. He watches you swing the hammer, and you watch the way he stares, wide-eyed, a mix of awe and fear. You vividly remember that very look. It is the same one you used to give your own father, back when he seemed as formidable as a mountain. Now you understand. He was not made of stone, just exhaustion and immense responsibility. You teach the boy everything you know. How to accurately judge heat by color, how to tap the metal instead of slamming it, how to listen to the subtle language of the iron. You yell sometimes, more out of a deeply ingrained habit than real anger. "Hold it right. That's too cold. Don't cry, it's only a burn." You try to soften things when you can. A quiet story by the crackling fire, a piece of dried fruit when you can afford it. But tenderness does not last long in the relentless forge. There is just too much work to be done. His hands will inevitably soon look like yours. His back will ache long before his voice breaks. He will learn to sleep through the constant ringing in his ears and wake up before sunrise without being told. He will outgrow his shirt, but never the permanent burn marks. And when you finally start to falter, your knees, your shoulders, your lungs, he will carry the hammer you can no longer lift. People might say that it is unfair, that the cycle should finally stop. But this is how it has always been, a continuous lineage of soot, steel, and unwavering survival. You are not just passing down a trade. You are passing on a profound legacy, a forge that simply never cools. So yes, you prepare your son to endure it all again. Not because you are cruel, but because someone must always keep the fire burning. You have spent a lifetime standing dangerously close to fire, swinging heavy iron for countless hours, and breathing far too little clean air. It was never a question of if your body would eventually fail, only when. And now it is undeniably happening. Your knees creak like ancient wooden doors in a storm. Your back stubbornly refuses to straighten. Your fingers, once strong enough to bend raw steel, now tremble noticeably when you try to lift a simple cup. The forge still roars its familiar symphony, but your arms no longer respond with the same power. The hammer feels heavier with each passing day, as if it knows that it is almost time to permanently leave your grasp. You do not leave in a blaze of glory. There is no heroic ending, no poignant ballad about your last swing. You just inevitably slow down. You start delegating tasks to your son. You spend more time sitting, watching more, and for the very first time, you struggle to remember the exact answers to his questions. The villagers now bypass you and go to your son. They still nod respectfully as they pass you, but their conversations are with your boy. He is the one with the freshly calloused hands now. The burns are raw and new on him. The deep ache of the craft has moved to new, younger shoulders. And quietly, you feel a deep sense of pride. You were never wealthy. You never owned land, or books, or fine clothes. But you were indispensable. You kept swords sharp, wheels turning, gates swinging, and farms working. The world rarely thanked you, but it undeniably moved forward because of your tireless efforts. You will probably not live to be 50. Most blacksmiths do not. The accumulated damage is too great. Lungs blackened from years of inhaling smoke, joints ground down like iron on stone, a heart worn out from constant heat and immense effort. But when you are gone, your work lives on. Nails are still firmly in church doors, blades rest securely at noble hips, horses are properly shod and ready to ride. You leave behind no titles, only tools, scars, and a son who now carries your hammer. And that, in your world, is more than enough. They may bury you in a simple grave. No gold, no statue, just a name roughly carved in wood, and a forge that continues to burn brightly in your memory. But every resounding clang that echoes through the village long after you are gone, that is the unmistakable sound of you, still tirelessly working. You were never a knight. You did not ride into battle with colorful banners flying or wear polished armor that gleamed in the sunlight. But you made that armor. You did not farm the land, but you meticulously crafted the plows that carved it. You did not bake the bread, but you painstakingly forged the oven doors. You did not build the formidable castle, but every single nail in its sturdy beams, every hinge on its heavy gates, they were all touched by your transformative fire. You were a blacksmith, and in the medieval world, that title meant everything. While nobles endlessly argued and kings repeatedly changed crowns, you steadfastly stood by your forge, day in and day out, meticulously shaping the world piece by painstaking piece. 1,000 seemingly small things. Rivets, hooks, braces, buckles. Nothing that usually gets a cheering crowd, yet everything that fundamentally holds the entire world together. Your life was undeniably loud, but your enduring legacy is remarkably quiet. No one ever wrote songs about your hammer. No bard ever praised your tongs. But every working wheel, every unbroken sword, every barn door that swings smoothly instead of falling off its hinges, that was all you're doing. People walked past your forge and just saw smoke. They smelled sweat and soot and simply assumed that was all there was to it. But inside, deep inside, was a vibrant symphony of intense heat and unyielding steel, a continuous process of creation and profound endurance. You did not just forge raw iron, you forged civilization itself, one horseshoe, one blade, one nail at a time. And now, long after your hands have stopped working, the fire continues to burn. Your son lifts your hammer. Your grandson learns to endure the intense heat. Your name might eventually fade from collective memory, but the vital tools you built carry on, passed from hand to hand, generation to generation. You were never crowned, never formally honored, never widely celebrated. But without you, nothing truly moved. No carts rolled, no armies marched, no homes were securely fastened. You were the unseen foundation beneath the grand history books, the persistent ember glowing beneath the celebrated stories of kings. And that matters far more than anyone ever said out loud. Because in a world fundamentally built of wood, stone, and sheer willpower, you were the essential fire. The silent spark that transformed raw or into tangible progress. You were not just part of the world. You were the very force that kept it turning. Long before alchemy became associated with secretive European laboratories and robed mystics whispering over bubbling flasks, it was something far more sacred and profoundly ancient. Its true origin lies not in medieval Europe, but in the shimmering heat of ancient Egypt, where transformation was not just a trick of science, but a divine principle woven into every part of life and death. The ancient Egyptians had a specific word for it, chemia, which came from chem, meaning black land. It referred to the dark, incredibly fertile soil left behind by the annual flooding of the Nile. But this was not just a poetic nickname for their land. It had deep spiritual meaning. To the Egyptians, black was the color of immense potential, of richness, of raw matter patiently waiting to be transformed. And so, the very land of Egypt itself became a powerful metaphor for the transformative power of nature. This is where the word alchemy, alchemia, would eventually come from. But alchemy in Egypt was not just about turning base metals into glittering gold. That particular obsession came much later. For the ancient Egyptians, alchemy was part of every aspect of their lives. It was essential to the solemn ritual of mummification, where the body of the deceased was carefully preserved, profoundly changed, and prepared for eternity. It was present in the sacred temples, where skilled priests carefully blended oils, herbs, and minerals into potent sacred elixirs. It was seen in the celestial stars, in the fertile soil, in the very act of baking bread and brewing beer. Transformation, they firmly believed, was the fundamental language of the gods. In fact, Egyptian alchemy was never just physical. It was fundamentally spiritual at its core. To outwardly change something, you first had to inwardly understand it. This profound idea would echo through the centuries in alchemical texts across countless cultures. Some legends say that these early Egyptian alchemists were divinely guided by a celestial figure, Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, magic, and the moon. According to ancient lore, Thoth revealed the profound secrets of creation, transformation, and the soul's difficult journey beyond death. These secrets, it was said, were written on a mystical object known as the Emerald Tablet. But before we get into that, we must acknowledge one fundamental truth. Alchemy began not as a greedy search for gold, but as a sacred science of life. In Egypt, it represented the primal fire from which all others came. And everything that followed, from ancient Persia to medieval Paris, would trace its roots back to this ancient, fertile land. If ancient Egypt was the birthplace of alchemy, then Thoth was undeniably its divine midwife. In Egyptian mythology, Thoth was not just a god. He was revered as the supreme deity of knowledge, magic, writing, time, and the very fundamental laws of the universe. Depicted with the head of an ibis and a moon disk on his head, Thoth represented balance. And in a world deeply obsessed with cosmic order and profound transformation, he was considered the sacred scribe of all hidden truths. According to widespread myth, Thoth did not just practice alchemy. He was the embodiment of it. The Egyptians firmly believed he had written thousands of sacred books full of divine wisdom. Most of these were never meant for mortal eyes, but one fragmented piece of his profound knowledge would change history forever: the mysterious Emerald Tablet. Whispers of the Emerald Tablet have echoed through time like an ancient riddle carved into the very bones of civilization. Said to be written on gleaming green crystal or a precious emerald stone, the tablet was a short, poetic text, barely a dozen lines long. Yet those lines were believed to hold the ultimate key to transforming matter, spirit, and reality itself. It begins with a sentence that has fascinated and haunted thinkers for centuries. That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. This deceptively simple line, known as the principle of correspondence, suggests that the microcosm and the macrocosm are perfect mirrors. What happens in the heavens is mirrored in the human soul. What changes in a laboratory echoes throughout the cosmos. The Emerald Tablet did not give explicit instructions for making gold. It offered a complete worldview. It declared that the world is not static. Everything can be refined, elevated, changed, not just led into gold, but ignorance into profound wisdom, chaos into perfect harmony, the mortal into the divine. The tablet also speaks of the one thing, the primordial source of all creation, and how it rises from the earth and descends from the sky, carrying the immense power of all things with it. Many interpreters saw this one thing as the fabled philosopher's stone, others as the soul, the ether, or even pure consciousness itself. But perhaps the greatest mystery was not what was on the tablet, but who could truly understand it. You had to be more than just a scholar, you had to be a devoted seeker. And it was this sacred riddle, divinely gifted by Thoth, that would courageously survive the fall of Egypt and be passed like a precious torch across borders and through the ages, first to Persia, then across the entire world. As Egypt's golden age began to fade, alchemy did not simply disappear. It migrated, traveling along ancient trade routes, carried by diligent scribes, profound mystics, and formidable conquerors. It passed into the hands of another powerful ancient empire, Persia. But this was not just a simple transfer of knowledge. In Persia, alchemy underwent its own profound transformation, one that seamlessly blended spiritual fire with deep philosophical insight. The very backbone of Persian alchemical thought was deeply shaped by Zoroastrianism, which is recognized as one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions. At its heart was the compelling concept of duality, a constant, cosmic battle between light and darkness, truth and falsehood, purity and corruption. Fire, considered the purest of all elements in Zoroastrian belief, was not just a symbol, it was inherently sacred. It burned eternally in temples, representing divine wisdom, and that sacred fire would ultimately ignite the crucibles of early Persian alchemists. But while spiritual ideas burned brightly, it was a Greco-Egyptian mystic named Zosimos of Panopolis who gave alchemy its first truly articulate voice, one that still echoes through history today. Living in Roman Egypt around the 3rd or 4th century CE, Zosimos was no ordinary philosopher. His voluminous writings seamlessly combined technical descriptions of furnaces, stills, and elixirs with strange, visionary journeys. In his most famous dream, he vividly describes himself being dismembered, burned, and completely transformed in an alchemical furnace. But instead of being horrifying, this vision is presented as divine. It symbolizes the spiritual death of the ego, the profound purification of the soul. Zosimos did not believe alchemy was just about changing metals. He was convinced that the alchemist must themselves undergo a fundamental transformation. Just as base matter must be broken down and purified before it can become gold, the alchemist had to suffer, purify, and transcend their former self. In his own words, alchemy was a profound mystery of both spirit and matter alike. He introduced the groundbreaking idea of spiritual alchemy, a concept that was far ahead of his time. Zosimos's writings are full of strange and evocative symbols: lions devouring serpents, men melting into colored vapors, divine beings emerging triumphantly from fire. These were not just chemical notes. They were profound metaphors for the soul's difficult journey toward perfection. Zosimos was also one of the first to emphasize that true knowledge could not be bought or simply memorized. It had to be deeply earned. The path of the alchemist was a difficult journey of discipline, suffering, and ultimate revelation. His influence would ripple across centuries and continents. And although many of his texts were eventually lost or profoundly misunderstood, one thing was clear: alchemy was no longer just a proto-science. It had evolved into a sacred philosophy. As the embers of ancient knowledge flickered across the remnants of Egypt, Greece, and Persia, a new empire majestically rose. And with it, a glorious golden age of profound wisdom blossomed under the expansive banner of Islam. From the 8th to the 13th century, a vast intellectual renaissance began. While much of Europe seemed to descend into the period known as the Dark Ages, thriving cities like Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba became vibrant sanctuaries for philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and, crucially, alchemy. At the very heart of this intellectual revival stood a man whose name would become legendary: Jabir ibn Hayyan, known in the West as Jibir. More than just a chemist, more than a mere philosopher, Jabir represented a powerful fusion of both. Often hailed as the father of chemistry, his contributions to alchemy were so profound that they fundamentally laid the groundwork for modern science itself. Working in the enlightened courts of the Abbasid Caliphate in the 8th century, Jabir approached alchemy not as a form of mysticism, but as a rigorously structured, empirically testable discipline. He introduced laboratory methods that are still recognizable and used today: distillation, crystallization, and sublimation. He cleverly invented new instruments, meticulously refined acids, and wrote over 100 texts that seamlessly blended deep philosophy with precise chemical experimentation. Yet he did not abandon the spiritual roots of the craft. Far from it. Jabir firmly believed that everything in the universe was made of combinations of 4 fundamental elements: earth, air, fire, and water, and was imbued with spiritual qualities. His intricate system included a complex blend of numerology, astrology, and symbolism. In his philosophical view, every transformation seen in the material world perfectly mirrored a deeper, inner transformation happening in the human soul. Jabir also introduced the crucial idea of balance, or mizan, as the ultimate key to unlocking alchemical processes. Just as the human body must maintain balance to stay healthy, so too must metals achieve perfect equilibrium to reach their ultimate perfection. Gold was not just a metal. It was considered matter that was in a state of perfect equilibrium. And if this precise balance could be achieved through careful and deliberate processes, then even the most basic metal could be profoundly elevated. His immense influence was not confined to the Islamic world. Over time, Jabir's groundbreaking texts were meticulously translated into Latin and widely circulated throughout medieval Europe, inspiring a powerful wave of Western alchemists who would build on his teachings, often without even realizing they were standing on the shoulders of a Persian genius. Through the pioneering work of Jabir ibn Hayyan, alchemy took its most decisive step forward. It was no longer just sacred symbolism. It had become a rigorous method, a systematic approach, a true science. And yet, it profoundly remained what it had always been: a complete map to transformation, both material and divine. As the Islamic world meticulously preserved and expanded the knowledge of the ancients, much of Europe remained cloaked in prevailing superstition and spiritual rigidity. But knowledge has a way of traveling, especially when it is too powerful to be contained. Slowly, piece by painstaking piece, alchemy gradually made its way westward, subtly conveyed through language, ink, and military conquest. The vital bridge between East and West was carefully built in places like Alexandria, once home to the revered Great Library, and later thriving centers such as Toledo and Córdoba in Islamic Spain, also known as Al-Andalus. Here, Christian, Jewish, and Muslim scholars diligently worked side by side in rare moments of profound intellectual harmony. Translators tirelessly worked on intricate Arabic manuscripts, carefully decoding the profound works of Jabir, Zosimos, and Aristotle, breathing forgotten ideas back into a receptive Europe. By the 12th century, Europe was intellectually starved for knowledge. The dramatic rediscovery of these ancient texts, especially those on alchemy, was nothing short of a cultural explosion. But what arrived was not just the practical science of chemistry. It was alchemy in its most complete form, a seamless fusion of spirit, matter, and profound meaning. Monasteries began secretly hiding strange manuscripts behind sacred scripture. Monks discreetly experimented with metals, not just to purify them physically, but to metaphorically purify themselves. And in hidden chambers and candlelit studies, European minds began to obsess over one single idea: transmutation. The compelling idea that base metals could be turned into precious gold, and that the human soul could undergo a similar transformation. One of the most influential texts to reach Europe was the Tuba Philosophorum, or Assembly of the Philosophers, a mysterious dialogue among ancient sages discussing the deepest secrets of nature. Then came the Picatrix, a massive Arabic grimoire full of complex astrological and alchemical symbolism. These works did not just transmit recipes. They conveyed entire worldviews. And those worldviews planted powerful seeds in curious minds. The Latin translations of these texts circulated quietly, often cleverly disguised as religious or philosophical treatises to avoid accusations of heresy. After all, alchemy was a significant threat. It challenged the fixed hierarchical order of things. If lead could become gold, could a peasant truly become noble? Could a person somehow become divine? The church watched with deep suspicion, but alchemy's allure was too strong to suppress. It offered a hidden path to perfection, existing outside of established dogma, beyond conventional authority. By the late Middle Ages, Europe had fully embraced the alchemical torch. The flame that once burned brightly in Egypt, Persia, and Baghdad now flickered in castles, monasteries, and clandestine secret societies. Alchemy had successfully crossed the threshold, and it was ready to evolve once again. By the late Middle Ages, alchemy in Europe had become something almost mythic. It was no longer just an intellectual pursuit. It had become a profound, holy quest. And at the very heart of that quest was one single object, one transformative idea, one enduring obsession: the Philosopher's Stone. The stone was not just a chemical substance. It was a profound mystery wrapped in allegory, carefully hidden in symbols, and deliberately cloaked in riddles. Said to have the power to turn base metals into gleaming gold and grant immortality through the elusive elixir of life. The Philosopher's Stone became the most intensely sought-after artifact in Western esoteric tradition. But to those who truly understood the essence of alchemy, the stone was not just physical. It was fundamentally spiritual. In ancient alchemical manuscripts, it was known by many names: lapis philosophorum, the red stone, the powder of projection. Some claimed it was a literal red crystalline substance. Others insisted it was a powerful metaphor for spiritual awakening. But all practitioners agreed that it represented the key to ultimate transformation. Alchemists firmly believed the universe itself was a living organism, constantly striving toward a state of perfection. Metals, too, were considered alive, slowly growing and maturing in the womb of the earth. Lead was simply immature gold. And just as nature inherently evolved toward perfect balance, a person could similarly evolve and achieve self-perfection. The Philosopher's Stone was seen as the catalyst for that profound evolution. European alchemists like Albertus Magnus, Roger Bacon, and later, Paracelsus, dedicated their entire lives to understanding the intricate processes of nature in a relentless search for this ultimate truth. They meticulously built furnaces, diligently studied astrology, collected rare and exotic minerals, and wrote cryptic texts filled with serpents, suns, dragons, and kings, all serving as powerful metaphors for the complex stages of inner and outer transformation. The stone's creation was said to follow a precise path known as the magnum opus, or great work. It began with nigredo, the blackening, a symbolic stage of death, decay, and the breaking down of the ego. Then came albedo, the whitening, representing purification. Next, citronidas, the yellowing, or illumination. And finally, rubedo, the reddening, symbolizing rebirth and the ultimate emergence of the stone. But why hide this profound process in such elaborate metaphor? Because true transformation, alchemists believed, was not meant for the uninitiated. The stone would reveal its secrets only to those who were truly prepared, not just intellectually, but profoundly spiritually. To seek the stone was to seek perfection. And while many relentlessly searched for material gold, the wisest alchemists understood that the only thing truly worth perfecting was the human soul. As alchemy became more deeply rooted in medieval Europe, it gradually began to recede into the shadows. What was once an open dialogue in ancient temples and scholarly exchanges in royal courts now became a hidden, clandestine practice. The reasons for this shift were complex: intense religious scrutiny, widespread political fear, and the simple fact that alchemy's language had evolved into a complex, secret code, decipherable only to the initiated. The Church, which held enormous power, viewed alchemy with a mix of both promise and significant danger. While some Christian mystics embraced it, seeing the transmutation of metals as a powerful mirror of Christ's resurrection, others vehemently condemned it. The audacious idea that a person could manipulate nature, or even achieve spiritual ascension outside of divine grace, was considered heretical. To avoid persecution, alchemists meticulously cloaked their teachings in intricate allegory and symbolism. Thus began an era where alchemy retreated underground, finding refuge in clandestine secret societies, coded manuscripts, and obscure symbols that only true insiders could interpret. The Rosicrucians, a mysterious brotherhood that first appeared in the 17th century, claimed to possess ancient alchemical wisdom passed down directly from Egypt and Arabia. Their manifestos spoke eloquently of spiritual enlightenment, divine harmony, and profound hidden sciences. Although no one could definitively prove their physical existence, their compelling ideas spread like wildfire, profoundly inspiring generations of dedicated seekers. Then there were the Freemasons, whose organizational roots trace back to medieval stone builders, but whose rituals echo deeply with pervasive alchemical philosophy. Concepts of purification, transformation, and the pursuit of inner light. Whether or not they practiced alchemy in the literal sense, their symbolic language aligned perfectly with its inherent aims, the meticulous building of the perfect self. Alchemy also found refuge in various books of secrets, texts like the Mutus Liber, which contained no words at all, only a series of strange, symbolic images specifically intended to communicate the great work without uttering a single sentence. Other manuscripts were deliberately written in green language, a complex form of wordplay, puns, and poetic double meanings that cleverly concealed their deeper truth. The alchemist's life had become one of duality, outwardly a scholar, a physician, or a monk, seemingly quiet and obedient, inwardly a revolutionary, relentlessly chasing the divine through fire and metal, spirit and stone. The very secrecy that initially threatened alchemy ultimately preserved it. Like a hidden fire buried under layers of ash, it smoldered unseen, faithfully passed down from master to apprentice, generation to generation. And in these quiet shadows, alchemy continued its profound evolution, not just as an early science, but as a living philosophy, one that would soon face its greatest challenge, the definitive birth of modern chemistry. By the 17th and 18th centuries, a quiet yet profound revolution was brewing, one that would both inherit and ultimately bury the mystical legacy of alchemy. The Age of Enlightenment had unequivocally arrived. The deep mysticism and rich metaphor that once cloaked alchemical thought were no longer welcome in the rigorous halls of academia. In their place came a new, more precise language: empiricism, strict logic, and consistently repeatable results. Alchemy's direct successor had arrived. Its name was chemistry. This was not an abrupt, violent execution. It was a slow, methodical transformation. Many of the earliest pioneering chemists were, in fact, former alchemists. They simply shifted their main focus. The ultimate goal was no longer spiritual perfection or the complex transmutation of souls, but rather measurable, tangible change. No more dragons and black suns, just precise beakers, accurate balances, and meticulous documentation. One of the final, decisive blows to traditional alchemy came with the work of Robert Boyle, who is often hailed as the father of modern chemistry. In his influential 1661 book, The Skeptical Chemist, Boyle cogently argued that matter was fundamentally made of atoms and that chemical reactions could be fully explained without resorting to mystical forces. He did not mock alchemy, but he systematically stripped it of its esoteric language and allegorical constructs. Boyle firmly believed in the alchemist's ability to transform things, but insisted it must be explained through discernible natural laws, not obscure allegory. Soon after, Antoine Lavoisier would famously discover the crucial role of oxygen in combustion and definitively disprove the ancient theory of the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. The periodic table would then follow. Laboratories became secular temples of empirical knowledge. Alchemy, with its hidden codes and sacred metaphors, was increasingly seen as outdated, an intellectual embarrassment to real science. But here is the inherent paradox. Chemistry owed its very existence to alchemy. The foundational tools, the experimental techniques, the very spirit of scientific curiosity. It all came from the intense furnace of that ancient craft. Alchemy had walked the initial, difficult path so that chemistry could quickly advance. Still, the world was undeniably changing. Industrialization demanded concrete results, not cryptic riddles. Governments funded burgeoning laboratories, not secretive lodges. The elusive philosopher's stone was replaced by the precision of the microscope, the ancient alembic by the efficient Bunsen burner. What was once sacred had become purely material. Yet not all was lost. In hidden corners and quiet minds, the spirit of alchemy still breathed, not as a conventional science, but as an enduring symbol of profound transformation of fundamental unity, and of the eternal, intricate dance between matter and spirit. And while the world mainly turned to chemistry for answers, some continue to look to alchemy for deeper meaning. Because some fires never truly go out, they just burn unseen beneath the surface. Alchemy may have vanished from the prestigious halls of academic science, but it never truly died. Instead, it transformed just as it always taught that all things must. What began in the sacred tombs of Egypt was meticulously refined in the fire temples of Persia, and intricately encoded in the hidden texts of medieval Europe did not simply disappear. It profoundly evolved, branching into the distinct fields of chemistry, psychology, medicine, and even modern spirituality. Its outward, material form was shed, but its inner, profound message endured. In the 20th century, a new kind of alchemist appeared, one who was equipped not with a physical furnace, but with a notebook and a mind full of deep dreams. Carl Jung, the influential Swiss psychologist, rediscovered the hidden wisdom embedded in alchemy and breathed new life into it. He compellingly argued that the ancient alchemists were not just transforming metals. They were unconsciously mapping the intricate terrain of the human psyche. The blackening phase, nigredo, Jung said, represented depression. The whitening, albedo, symbolized profound insight. The reddening, rubedo, marked the birth of a unified self. The elusive philosopher's stone, Jung asserted, was the process of individuation, the profound journey of becoming truly whole. Alchemy, it turned out, had always been about something far greater than just gold. Today, we see its subtle fingerprints everywhere. In contemporary self-help books that advocate for personal transformation, in captivating stories of heroes who bravely go into darkness only to return profoundly reborn, and in the very language we commonly use. Words like refine, distill, and purify are all direct echoes of the alchemist's ancient path. Even in the rigorous realm of modern science, the underlying spirit of alchemy quietly lingers. Chemists still transmute elements, albeit in nuclear reactors. Physicists speak of dark matter and unified fields with the same profound wonder that alchemists once reserved for ether and quintessence. The relentless search for the fundamental building blocks of the universe continues. Only the specific language used has changed. But perhaps the true, enduring legacy of alchemy lies in its unwavering insistence on wholeness. It never separated spirit from matter, nor science from profound mystery. It taught that the transformation of the outer world intrinsically begins with the profound transformation of the inner self, that behind every meticulous experiment lay a sacred, overarching question. Who are you becoming in the process? In a world increasingly driven by speed, by technology, by the cold precision of data, alchemy whispers an ancient, timeless truth, that to truly change anything, you must also be willing to profoundly change yourself. And so the alchemist's transformative fire still burns, not in physical crucibles, but deep in human hearts, patiently waiting, gently calling, endlessly transforming. Because alchemy was never just a science, it was a profound mirror. At first glance, Cappadocia looks like a surreal painting, its surface dotted with towering stone chimneys and gracefully rippling ridges carved by relentless wind and the passage of time. Tourists marvel at the strange beauty you can see above ground, but what most never fully understand is that the true wonder lies deep beneath their feet. Deep under this unique Turkish landscape is a forgotten world, an intricate labyrinth of subterranean cities that stretch for many miles. These are not simple caves or makeshift shelters. They are entire complex urban centers cleverly hidden underground, complete with meticulously carved residences, chapels, wells, extensive food storage areas, stables, and even dedicated schools. Some of these cities go down as far as 18 stories deep and could house thousands of people in the cool shadows of the earth. The most astonishing part? Many of these vast underground cities were completely unknown until the mid-20th century. In 1963, a man doing simple renovations in his home in the town of Derinkuyu unexpectedly knocked down a wall in his basement. What he found behind it was not brick or dirt. It was a dark, seemingly endless tunnel. That tunnel led to another, then to a spacious chamber, and then to a spiraling staircase. he had accidentally uncovered an ancient entrance to one of the largest underground cities in the entire world. It was as if an entire civilization had deliberately chosen to vanish under the ground, leaving behind no discernible sign of their presence except a profound silence. But Derinkuyu was just one of many such hidden cities. Over the following decades, archaeologists have identified hundreds of underground settlements throughout Cappadocia, with at least 40 major ones, often connected by narrow corridors and clever secret escape routes. These were not randomly dug burrows. They were meticulously planned and expertly engineered. Massive circular stone doors could be rolled into place to completely seal off passageways from the inside. These were not simple blocks. They were perfectly fitted, could only be moved from the inside, and were nearly impossible to force open from the outside. Ventilation shafts intricately brought fresh air from the surface to the deepest levels. Wells tapped into underground aquifers, ensuring a constant supply of fresh water even during a long siege. There was even a mission school, complete with dedicated study rooms, which suggests that these cities were not just about physical survival. They were about cultural continuity, teaching, worship, and preserving a community. Why would anyone go to such extraordinary lengths to build something so elaborate under the earth? That question has haunted historians for many years. Theories abound. Were these cities mainly hiding spots from relentless invading armies? Were they monastic refuges, secret spiritual sanctuaries? Or were they something far older, far stranger, built for reasons we can barely imagine? Whatever the underlying reason, one thing is unequivocally clear. Cappadocia was not just a geological region. It was a profound refuge, a world cleverly hidden under a world, a place where thousands of people could completely disappear from the surface and live their entire lives underground. And the deeper you go into these silent cities, the stranger and more complex the story becomes. To understand why people built such extensive cities under Cappadocia, we first need to understand the unique geology of the land itself, because Cappadocia is no ordinary terrain. Millions of years ago, a series of violent volcanic eruptions covered central Turkey in thick layers of ash. That ash then hardened into a soft, porous rock known as tuff, a material light enough to be carved with basic tools yet remarkably strong enough to hold its shape over many centuries. Rain and wind then meticulously sculpted it into bizarre formations. Towering, fairy chimneys, distinct conical towers, and mushroom-like spires. The entire region looked as if it had been torn from a fantastical dream or a completely different planet. But ancient peoples did not just marvel at the unique rock. They intelligently worked with it. Early settlers quickly realized that this distinctive volcanic stone was a profound gift. They could effortlessly carve out homes, chapels, storage rooms, and even entire complex living spaces without needing lumber or traditional bricks. And unlike surface dwellings, these subterranean stone chambers remained refreshingly cool in the scorching summers and comfortably warm during freezing winters. Above ground, they carved beautiful churches directly into cliff faces. But below ground, that is where the true architectural magic happened. It likely began with simple caves, small, discreet hideaways to store food, to escape the oppressive heat, or to seek shelter from sudden storms. But over time, as external threats grew and communities expanded, those initial caves also grew. They gradually evolved into interconnected rooms, then multiple levels, and eventually vast, intricate networks. And once the meticulous digging started, it seemingly never stopped. Entire societies seemed to vanish under the soil, carving deeper and deeper, not haphazardly, but with deliberate, precise intention. Tunnels meticulously connected homes to kitchens, stables to wells, and individual rooms to communal chapels. They cleverly created sophisticated ventilation shafts that extended to the surface, filtering fresh air through as many as 18 underground levels. They even excavated vertical staircases, wide enough to accommodate both people and livestock, yet strategically narrow enough to defend effectively. What is truly astonishing is the immense age of some of these structures. While many underground cities were significantly expanded during the Byzantine era, some archaeologists believe that the original, deepest levels, especially in sites like Derinkuyu and Kimakli, could potentially date back to the Hittite Empire or even earlier, possibly around 2000 BCE. This unique land inherently invited transformation, and the people of Cappadocia responded by meticulously shaping it not with advanced machines, but with unwavering patience, profound vision, and a sharp focus on survival. The earth was not just a mere foundation. It became a complete shelter, an impregnable fortress, a second sky, only inverted and filled with profound secrets. But what exactly were they so diligently hiding from? That is the compelling question we will look at next. Under the quiet town of Derinquiu lies something truly extraordinary. A city not located on the earth, but deeply embedded under it. A sprawling city that no one even knew existed until 1963, when a local man, doing simple renovations in his home, accidentally knocked down a wall and discovered a dark tunnel that stretched beyond sight. That tunnel led to numerous chambers. These chambers, in turn, led to intricate corridors. Staircases spiraled relentlessly down into the solid rock, leading from room to room, level to level, until eventually, astonished explorers found themselves standing a remarkable 18 stories under the surface. They had uncovered Derinquiu, the largest and deepest underground city ever discovered in Cappadocia, and quite possibly in the entire world. What archaeologists found was truly staggering. This was no temporary hideout or a mere emergency shelter. Derinquiu was a fully functional, living city, meticulously carved entirely out of volcanic stone. It had residences, churches, communal kitchens, wine and oil presses, extensive storage rooms, schools, and even a dedicated baptismal chamber. It could house an estimated 20,000 people, along with their livestock and essential food supplies. It was engineered with remarkable precision. Massive, circular rolling stone doors, expertly shaped like millstones, could be moved to completely seal off tunnels in the event of an attack. These were not simple blocks. They were perfectly fitted, could only be moved from the inside, and were nearly impossible to force open from the outside. Ventilation shafts snaked intricately up through the solid rock, delivering fresh air to even the deepest levels. Wells provided access to underground aquifers, ensuring a constant supply of water without the need to go to the surface, even during a long siege. There was even a dedicated mission school, complete with study rooms, which strongly suggests that this city was not just about physical survival. It was profoundly about continuity, preserving teaching, worship, and the community itself. But here is what makes Derinquiu so deeply mysterious. We do not definitively know who first built it or exactly why. Some believe it was mainly expanded by early Christians who were fleeing Roman or later Arab persecution. Others argue that the foundational levels are far older, potentially dating back to the Phrygians or even the Hittites, thousands of years before the Christian era. Why go to such extraordinary efforts to vanish underground? Was it to escape invading armies, as many believe, or was the perceived threat entirely non-human? Derinquiu has no definitive inscriptions, no identifiable names, no clear chronological timeline. Just rooms, tunnels, and a lot of unanswered questions. And even today, much of it remains unexplored. Because the deeper you go, the less it feels like a conventional city, and the more it feels like something else entirely. To build down is far more complex than to build up. There is no natural sunlight, no convenient scaffolding, no wide open skies, just solid stone and pervasive shadow. And yet, the clever architects of Cappadocia's underground cities did not just dig. They designed with remarkable intelligence and astonishing precision. They created spaces that could comfortably support thousands of lives for months, perhaps even years at a time. These cities were not chaotic tunnels hastily dug in a panic. They were meticulously planned systems, layered like an onion, with each level serving a distinct and purposeful function. Living quarters were usually closer to the surface, allowing for quicker access to the outside world when the danger had passed. Deeper levels had communal kitchens, various workshops, extensive food storage areas, and livestock pens, all strategically placed to minimize the risk of contamination or the spread of fire throughout the city. One of the most clever features was the sophisticated ventilation system. Long, vertical shafts were expertly carved through the solid rock to let fresh air circulate efficiently through as many as 18 underground levels. Some shafts went down over 50 meters deep, yet were so well placed that fresh air could reach even the lowest chambers without the need for fans or electricity, relying only on gravity and brilliant design. Water supply was another crucial element for survival. The cities were strategically built around natural aquifers. Wells could be accessed from inside, ensuring that even during a long siege, residents would not need to go out for water. In some cities, the well shafts were completely sealed off from the surface to prevent deliberate poisoning by attackers. There were also intricate communication tunnels, some leading to smaller satellite chambers, others connecting to nearby underground cities. In times of imminent danger, messages or people could be moved efficiently through the earth itself. And the defense mechanisms were both elegantly simple and remarkably effective. Narrow corridors that forced invaders to approach single file, cleverly designed trapdoors that could be instantly dropped, and hidden escape routes that led to remote valleys or riverbeds. Most famously, the massive rolling stone doors. Huge, round slabs that could be quickly rolled into place to seal off a passage in mere seconds. From the outside, they looked like a seamless part of the wall. From the inside, they were the ultimate last line of defense. Every single decision, every small design detail, pointed to one undeniable truth. These cities were meticulously built for long-term survival. Not for just days, not for weeks, but for sustained living under extreme long-term threat. Which naturally raises the compelling question: what kind of pervasive danger made this extraordinary level of preparation necessary? And was that danger ever truly eliminated? For centuries, scholars have wondered about the same haunting question. Who were the people of Cappadocia so desperately hiding from? What kind of pervasive threat made entire populations dig deep into the earth, not just for temporary shelter, but to permanently live there? The most widely accepted theory points to recurring invasions. Central Anatolia was a crucial crossroads for numerous empires. From the powerful Assyrians to the formidable Persians, from the enduring Romans to the mighty Byzantines, the region was constantly under threat. Later, relentless Arab raids during the early Islamic period would force Christian communities to seek refuge deep underground. Derinkuyu and Kimakli may have become vital sanctuaries during these successive waves of violence, allowing people to literally disappear into the rock and patiently wait for the danger to pass. However, there is a significant problem with this single theory. The immense depth, intricate complexity, and sheer scale of these underground cities suggest they were not built in a hasty rush. This was not a desperate, last-minute act. It was a meticulously planned, long-term project, requiring generations of digging, sophisticated engineering, and continuous refinement. Some of the deepest chambers and tunnels seem to predate Christianity entirely. So who built the first layers? Some historians trace the earliest tunnels back to the Hittite Empire, nearly 4,000 years ago. Others suggest the Phrygians may have significantly expanded them. But beyond these educated guesses, the historical record is silent. There are no definitive inscriptions, no identifiable carvings, no direct evidence to tell us who first vanished under the surface or what terrifying force they were fleeing. That is where the more speculative theories come in. Some suggest these subterranean cities were built not to escape other human beings, but something else entirely. Cataclysmic natural disasters, intense solar events, long volcanic winters, or ancient, profound climatic catastrophes. The intricate layout of the cities, self-sufficient, cleverly hidden, and able to be completely sealed off, could be interpreted as long-term survival bunkers meticulously prepared for environmental collapse. Others look to more cosmic explanations. Ancient astronaut theorists propose that early civilizations may have built these cities to hide from entities they described as gods, powerful beings who came down from the sky and ruled with fearsome, overwhelming power. Could the underground cities have been a sophisticated shield against something not of this earth? One local legend speaks of huge giants that once roamed the surface, terrifying people and driving them underground. Others tell tales of fire from the heavens and relentless enemies who came with burning eyes. To the modern ear, these may sound like just metaphors or memories that have been distorted by centuries of oral tradition, but they undeniably hint at something terrifying enough to make entire cultures retreat into the very rock. While these ideas remain speculative, They profoundly reflect a central, enduring mystery. No matter how many layers archaeologists meticulously uncover, the core question remains fundamentally unanswered. Who were they so desperately hiding from? And did their efforts ultimately succeed? Because sometimes, the deeper you dig, the darker and more unsettling the truth becomes. Imagine living not just for a day, but for months, perhaps even years, entirely underground. No sunlight, no open skies, just confining stone walls, flickering oil lamps, and the pervasive hush of life lived under the earth. This was the stark reality for thousands in Cappadocia during periods of intense threat. But what was daily life truly like inside these vast underground cities? Despite the inherent darkness, these subterranean spaces were far from lifeless. They were vibrant with routine, meticulously structured for communal survival. Families lived in multi-room compartments. Kitchens were strategically located on lower levels to manage smoke more efficiently, and food was cooked in clay ovens. The comforting smell of freshly baked bread likely mixed with the damp smell of stone and livestock. There were churches and chapels meticulously carved with crosses and altars, some even decorated with intricate frescoes. People did not just survive here. They prayed, worshipped, and practiced their cherished rituals. There were designated communal areas for meetings, dedicated schooling rooms for children, and long corridors that echoed softly with voices and footsteps. Lighting was provided by oil lamps, dozens of them strategically scattered along the passageways. Smoke was cleverly channeled through ingeniously designed shafts that also served as vital ventilation systems. Yet life here was undeniably challenging. Fresh air was limited, perpetual darkness was a constant companion, and silence, when it came, was absolute. Water was drawn from deep wells intricately tunneled into underground aquifers. Grain was stored in sealed chambers to prevent spoilage. Wine presses and olive oil vats have been found meticulously carved directly into the rock, which suggests that even underground, life had flavor and ritual. The cities were explicitly built for long-term living. They were not a last-ditch resort. They were a meticulously prepared reality. Livestock, sheep, goats, chickens, were kept in dedicated pens, usually located near the entrance levels for easier management and better ventilation. Their presence served a dual purpose, providing both food and warmth. Despite the confined spaces, the ancient builders profoundly understood the psychology of survival. Rooms were laid out in ways that gave families a sense of privacy, while shared spaces fostered a crucial sense of community. Life underground was not just about hiding. It was fundamentally about preserving a way of life, an entire culture, and a people. It is a humbling thought. While wars raged violently above ground, entire civilizations quietly continued below, hidden in profound silence. People married, diligently taught their children, and mourned their dead, all in stone chambers softly lit by fire. To live underground was not to live in perpetual fear. It was to live with unwavering intention. Cappadocia's underground cities were not isolated pockets of refuge. They were essential parts of something far grander. Under the valleys and hills of this unique volcanic region lies a vast, intricate network of tunnels, chambers, and hidden passageways that seem to connect multiple cities together. Derinquiu, Kemakli, Oskanak, and others may not have been just separate settlements, but rather interconnected pieces of a unified subterranean civilization. Some of these tunnels go on for kilometers, weaving under the countryside like veins under the skin. Narrow, winding, and often no wider than a single person's shoulders. They were likely used for secret movement, discreet escape routes, or even for transporting vital messages and supplies from one underground complex to another. Derinquiu and Kemakli, two of the largest known cities, are widely believed to be linked by such a tunnel, which stretches for nearly 9 kilometers. That is not just impressive engineering. It is compelling evidence of coordinated planning on a scale that is rarely seen in ancient architecture. If true, it means that multiple cities could effectively support one another in times of siege or crisis, functioning almost like an intricate underground federation. But these tunnels were not just for utility. They also had sophisticated defensive features. They were built with multiple bottlenecks, deceptive blind turns, and strategic choke points, which forced any pursuer to enter one at a time, making them exceptionally easy to trap or ambush. Many tunnels were cleverly rigged with trapdoors and massive stone corks that could be quickly rolled into place to block intruders. Still, the full extent of these vast networks is still largely unknown. New passageways are still being accidentally discovered. In 2014, an even larger underground complex was unexpectedly found under Nevsur, potentially dwarfing even Derinkuyu in scale. Archaeologists believe it could have dozens of levels, intricate aqueducts, numerous places of worship, and countless more tunnels that have yet to be fully mapped. What were these tunnels truly designed for? Were they simple escape routes? Or did they form the essential infrastructure of a society that was meticulously built to live without ever being seen? The more we uncover, the more we realize that Cappadocia's underground is not just a scattered collection of homes and halls. It is a sophisticated system, meticulously planned, intricately connected, and profoundly hidden under our feet for thousands of years. And maybe, just maybe, there is still more waiting to be discovered, entire cities deliberately buried not by the passage of time, but by intentional secrecy. Because in Cappadocia, the earth does not just hide secrets, it actively protects them. Despite decades of meticulous excavation and extensive study, Cappadocia's underground cities are still shrouded in profound mystery. The silent stone walls may hide their origins, but the unanswered questions echo louder than ever. Not just the perplexing question of how they were built, but more importantly, why and when they were built. When conventional historical answers are not enough, myths and alternative theories rush in to fill the informational void. One of the most enduring questions is about the true age of these enigmatic cities. Mainstream archaeology largely links their significant expansion to the Byzantine period, when Christian communities sought refuge from various invading forces. But some researchers argue that the earliest tunnels and chambers are far more ancient, possibly dating back 4,000 years or even longer. If that is true, what kind of pervasive threat existed so long ago that would make entire populations move underground? This is where the various theories come in. Some propose that these subterranean cities were emergency shelters from cataclysmic natural disasters. Massive floods, intense solar flares, long volcanic winters, or ancient, profound climatic catastrophes. The very layout of the cities, self-sufficient, cleverly hidden, and able to be completely sealed off, could be interpreted as meticulously prepared, long-term survival bunkers that were designed for environmental collapse. Others lean towards cosmic explanations. Ancient astronaut theorists argue that early civilizations may have built these cities to hide from entities they described as gods, powerful beings who supposedly came down from the sky and ruled with fearsome, overwhelming power. Could the underground cities have been a sophisticated shield against something not of this earth? One local legend speaks of huge giants that once roamed the surface, terrifying people and driving them underground. Others tell tales of fire from the heavens and relentless enemies who came with burning eyes. To the modern ear, these stories may sound like just metaphors or memories that have been distorted by centuries of oral tradition, but they undeniably hint at something terrifying enough to make entire cultures retreat into the very rock. There are also theories that are intricately tied to the profound symbolism of the earth itself. In some ancient traditions, going down into the ground represents a spiritual journey into the underworld, a metaphorical death and subsequent rebirth. Were these cities perhaps spiritual sanctuaries? Places of profound ritual transformation? Or were they never truly abandoned, but deliberately forgotten? The truth is, no single theory adequately explains it all. The immense scale, the ancient age, the astonishing precision, it does not fully fit into our existing historical framework. And perhaps that is the most unsettling aspect of all, because sometimes what is hidden is not just history. It is the very edge of something we were never meant to fully understand. Today, visitors to Cappadocia wander through dreamlike landscapes, over valleys that have been meticulously carved by the wind, past fairy chimneys that glow orange in the evening sun. Hot air balloons drift quietly overhead, painting a serene picture, but under their feet the ground is hollow. Under the superficial beauty lies a world that was meticulously carved in darkness, one that still seems to be holding its breath after thousands of years. The underground cities are now partially open to curious tourists. Visitors go down narrow stairwells, pass through low, arched tunnels, and stand in rooms where people once lived in profound silence, patiently waiting for danger to pass. And yet, only a fraction of these vast complexes has been uncovered. Some chambers are still permanently sealed, some tunnels disappear into impenetrable shadow, and some doorways lead to nowhere, or so it seems. These are not just mere ruins. They are powerful testaments, undeniable proof that people will go to unimaginable lengths to survive, to meticulously protect their children, to faithfully preserve their cherished beliefs, and to simply vanish when the world above becomes hostile. And in that profound act of vanishing, they left behind a unique kind of message, not explicitly written in language, but implicitly carved in enduring stone. We do not know their names. We do not know their individual stories, but we know this for sure. They were brilliant planners, skilled engineers, and profound visionaries. They meticulously created something that could withstand centuries of silence, something that might have been explicitly designed never to be discovered. Cappadocia powerfully reminds us that history is not always on the surface. Sometimes the most profound truths are deliberately buried, hidden from relentless conquerors, hidden from the merely curious, hidden, perhaps, even from the relentless march of time itself. And what ultimately remains? Enduring mystery, mystery in the perfect, precise fit of the massive rolling stone doors. Mystery in the clever air shafts that still draw cool wind from the deep recesses of the earth. Mystery in the countless miles of unexplored tunnels, still untouched, still dark, still holding their secrets. Perhaps the true, original purpose of Cappadocia's underground world will never be fully known. Maybe it is not meant to be, but as you walk through those silent chambers, with the immense weight of rock pressing from above and the pervasive silence closing in, you feel something ancient stirring in you, a powerful presence, a quiet whisper, not of fear, but of indomitable endurance. Because when the world above was consumed by chaos, the resilient people of Cappadocia looked down and chose to survive in the dark, together. And the earth, it seems, has faithfully kept their secret well. To the ancient world, sleep was not just an escape from a harsh reality. It was an entryway into something far deeper and more meaningful. Dreams were not simply dismissed as random thoughts or fleeting figments of the imagination. They were taken profoundly seriously. In fact, they were considered direct messages, sometimes dire warnings, sometimes profound prophecies, and often explicit communications from powerful gods or benevolent spirits. For ancient civilizations, the boundary between the physical world and the spiritual realm was not sharp and unyielding. It was porous and permeable. And in sleep, that crucial boundary grew remarkably thin. The very act of dreaming was considered sacred, deeply mysterious, and often terrifying. It was during those quiet, vulnerable hours of the night that the divine could truly reach into the human mind. And what it whispered or powerfully roared could change the course of a king's crucial decision, a priest's solemn ritual, or an entire city's fate. In almost every early culture, from the fertile river valleys of Mesopotamia to the grand temples of Egypt and the intellectual academies of Greece, dreams had an elevated, revered status. People firmly believed they were being visited not by mere fantasy, but by real, potent forces with real, tangible consequences. Dreams could foretell an impending war. They could chillingly reveal a hidden betrayal. They could offer profound healing, or they could unequivocally demand a sacrifice. Ignoring a powerful dream was not just seen as foolish. It was considered extremely dangerous, risking divine wrath. The dreamer, then, was not just a sleeper. They were a vital messenger, a vessel temporarily open to receive cosmic truths. And in some extraordinary cases, that dreamer became a revered prophet, directly chosen by the gods. Entire professions were dedicated solely to understanding and interpreting dreams. Priests, shamans, oracles, and seers all meticulously learned to read the complex symbols that appeared in the night. A snake in a dream could be a symbol of profound transformation or a deadly omen, depending on the specific context. A rising sun could promise victory or insidious deception, again, depending on the precise circumstances. Each culture developed its own unique set of interpretive codes, but the fundamental belief was universal. Dreams undeniably mattered. Even today, fragments of that ancient wisdom subtly linger. We speak of following our dreams, or waking up to a realization. But in the ancient world, dreams were not poetic expressions. They were literal maps, urgent warnings, sacred intelligence powerfully delivered while the conscious mind slept. This was the world before Freud, before REM cycles, before science even tried to measure what the ancients already inherently feared and deeply revered. Because to them, the dream world was palpably real, and to walk through it was to walk intimately with gods. The first civilization to leave behind written records of dreams were the Sumerians, who flourished in Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago. They did not see dreams as random, fleeting images. To them, dreams were direct, unfiltered transmissions from the divine realm, often complex, highly symbolic, and deeply consequential. Among the extensive ruins of their cities, archaeologists found clay tablets meticulously etched with dream accounts, some intensely personal, others profoundly political. Dream interpretation was not a novelty. It was a structured, revered practice, diligently taught, rigorously studied, and highly respected. Sumerian kings had court dream interpreters, people who were specifically trained to decipher the intricate messages of the gods, and their interpretations could literally influence the fate of entire cities. One of the most famous examples of this ancient dream culture is found in the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the world's oldest surviving literary works. In it, both Gilgamesh and his trusted companion Enkidu have vivid, highly symbolic dreams before they set out on their perilous journey to slay the formidable monster Humbaba. Gilgamesh dreams of intense celestial battles and catastrophically collapsing mountains, visions which his wise mother and the priests interpret as divine warnings and veiled prophecies. These dreams were not ignored. They were meticulously consulted as sacred guidance. The Sumerians firmly believed that there were two distinct categories of dreams: those purposefully sent by gods to offer help or instruction, and others that were empty, just faint echoes of the day's waking thoughts. Figuring out which was which required the profound wisdom of a priest or diviner, people who had the ability to accurately read omens, symbols, and intricate patterns that were subtly hidden in the rich imagery of sleep. Temples often had special chambers where priests or even kings would deliberately sleep in hopes of receiving direct divine visions. This ritual practice, later known in other cultures as incubation, may have started with the Sumerians. These sacred dreams were revered as direct oracles, sometimes even more trusted than waking signs or portents. Dreams could also be potent political tools. A ruler who credibly claimed to receive divine dreams could significantly strengthen his legitimacy or boldly justify major decisions. "The gods told me in a dream" was not just a spiritual claim, it was a powerful assertion of authority. In the Sumerian worldview, the entire universe was alive with profound meaning, and dreams were its direct language. Every image, whether a violent storm, a ferocious lion, or a falling star, had immense cosmic significance. And in a land where gods were believed to walk intimately among men, to dream was to actively listen. To ignore those dreams was to risk the overwhelming wrath of the heavens themselves. To the ancient Egyptians, dreams were not just messages. They were profound portals, pathways directly to the gods, fleeting glimpses into the afterlife, and sometimes explicit instructions for the living. In a culture utterly obsessed with achieving eternity, sleep was not just a time for physical rest. It was a sacred rehearsal for death, and dreams were direct communications from the mysterious realm beyond. Egyptian texts clearly show that dreams were considered both deeply personal and powerfully prophetic. Like the Sumerians, Egyptians categorized dreams into two distinct kinds: truth dreams, which were genuinely sent by the gods or spirits to offer guidance, healing, or warnings, and false dreams, which were considered misleading or simply born of a bodily imbalance. Temples dedicated to gods such as Serapis and Thoth were well known for practicing dream incubation. worshippers would intentionally sleep inside the sacred temple walls, fervently hoping to receive divine dreams. These temple dreams were often meticulously recorded, interpreted by skilled priests, and in some cases, even carved into enduring stone. In certain instances, a person might receive not only visions but profound healing directly through their dreams. One of the most fascinating artifacts is the Ramesside Dream Book, which dates to about 1300 BCE. This ancient papyrus scroll is essentially a complete catalog of dream symbols and their corresponding meanings. It meticulously lists over 100 dreams, each precisely paired with an interpretation. For example, if a man dreamed of himself eating crocodile flesh, it was interpreted to mean he would gain significant power over his enemies. Another entry explicitly warns that dreaming of drinking warm beer foretells impending sorrow. These interpretations were taken with the utmost seriousness. Pharaohs, military generals, and powerful priests all sought the advice of experienced dream interpreters, who acted as crucial intermediaries between the dreamer and the divine realm. Egyptian mythology also intricately linked dreams to the Ka, or soul. During sleep, the Ka was believed to freely leave the body and travel to other realms. What it saw there then came back as dreams. Sometimes these were comforting visions of loved ones who had long since died or profound encounters with gods who were bearing vital messages. Occasionally, dreams were considered visits from malevolent spirits, and protective spells were carefully recited to keep such ominous forces away. Even in tomb inscriptions, references to dreams appear. Kings described how gods appeared to them in the night, offering divine sanction for their rule or crucial guidance for their legacy. In the land of pyramids and gods, dreams were not mere illusions. They were profound revelations. And to dream was to step briefly into the eternal. In ancient Greece, dreams occupied a unique space where medicine, mythology, and philosophy deeply intersected. To the Greeks, dreams were more than just personal experiences. They were cosmic messages, often delivered by powerful gods, revered heroes, or even unsettling forces from the underworld. But unlike earlier civilizations, the Greeks also began to analytically question why we dream, thereby planting the very first seeds of psychological thought. The most sacred place for dream revelation in Greece was the Asclepieion, a healing temple specifically dedicated to the god Asclepius, the divine physician. Pilgrims traveled from all over the Mediterranean to sleep inside these sacred sanctuaries in a process known as incubation. Before sleeping, they would meticulously purify themselves through fasting, ritual bathing, or offerings, all to prepare their bodies and souls to receive healing dreams. In these dreams, it was believed that Asclepius himself would appear, diagnosing their illness or prescribing a miraculous cure, sometimes even performing dream surgery. Temple priests, known as therapeuti, interpreted the dreams and applied treatments based on what the gods had revealed. This unique blend of medicine and mysticism was highly respected and often proved remarkably effective, or at least it seemed to. The walls of Asclepieions were often covered in inscriptions thanking the gods for miraculous recoveries. But dreams in Greece were not just for healing. They also had significant political and prophetic importance. In Homer's epic poems, dreams come directly from Zeus. In the Iliad, the god sends a deceptive dream to Agamemnon to influence a crucial battle strategy. In the Odyssey, Penelope speaks of two distinct gates of dreams. One made of horn, from which true dreams come, and one of ivory, from which come lies and deceptions. Dream interpretation became a respected craft. Philosophers like Aristotle and Heraclitus wondered about the fundamental nature of dreams, questioning whether they came from divine origins or simply from the stirrings of the human soul. Meanwhile, Artemidorus of Daldis, a prolific 2nd century dream interpreter, wrote the Oneirocritica, a comprehensive 5-book manual on how to meticulously decode dreams based on the dreamer's profession, gender, social status, and various symbolic elements. His seminal work was referenced for centuries. The Greeks believed that during sleep, the soul loosened its firm grip on the body, floating in a liminal state where it could glimpse deeper, hidden truths. Whether they were supposedly sent by gods or born from inner reflection, dreams were never considered meaningless to the Greeks. To dream was not just to see visions. It was to momentarily touch the divine mind itself. In the ancient world, the realm of dreams was not just a place of prophecy or healing. It was also a sacred space where the deceased could communicate. Many ancient civilizations firmly believed that dreams provided a rare and profound moment when the veil that separated the living and the dead grew remarkably thin. To dream of a departed loved one was not seen as a simple expression of grief or a lingering memory. It was often believed that the very spirit of the deceased had truly returned, bringing urgent messages, vital warnings, or unresolved requests. These dream encounters were immensely powerful, deeply emotional, and profoundly significant. In Egypt, where the afterlife was absolutely central to their belief system, dreams were thought to offer a direct, potent link to the underworld. The soul, or Ka, was believed to travel freely during sleep, even going to visit the dead. If a deceased family member appeared in a dream, it could mean they were displeased, in need of offerings, or simply reaching out with guidance. Egyptians sometimes wrote letters to the dead, leaving them in tombs or shrines, hoping their requests would be answered in a dream. In Mesopotamia, dream encounters with the dead were treated with a mix of reverence and extreme caution. The deceased were believed to have significant power in the afterlife, and a dream visit could be an unsettling sign that something was wrong, perhaps a neglected burial ritual or an unfulfilled vow. These dreams were often followed by meticulous ritual purification or propitiatory offerings to fix the situation. The Greeks also took dreams that involved the dead very seriously. In Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus famously goes down into the underworld and talks with the spirits of the fallen, a vision that powerfully mirrors what many believed could happen during sleep. The philosopher Heraclitus once said, "The waking have one world in common, but the sleeping turn aside each into a world of his own." That private, personal world was precisely where the dead could subtly slip through. Even beyond Europe and the Middle East, many cultures had strikingly similar views, that the deceased were not completely gone, and that dreams were their primary language. When the voice of a lost parent or child spoke clearly in the night, it was not just poetic, it was palpably real. To the ancients, sleep was not a place to forget. It was where the past could still reach out and, sometimes, demand to be remembered. To ancient civilizations, dreams were not just simple messages. They were complex puzzles, richly laden with symbols, strange creatures, impossible events, and celestial signs. Dreams were firmly believed to have a coded language that came directly from the divine realm. Interpreting them was by no means easy. It required extensive training, keen intuition, and often specific ritual practices. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece, professional dream interpreters acted almost like revered priests or shamans. They diligently studied vast collections of documented dream records, meticulously memorized the intricate meanings of symbols, and had the crucial knowledge to distinguish between a true dream and a meaningless one. Their interpretations could profoundly influence public policy, medical treatments, and even military strategies. Across various cultures, certain dream symbols appeared repeatedly, and their meanings were rarely literal. A snake might mean danger in one dream, but profound transformation in another. Seeing fire could be a dire warning of impending destruction or symbolize necessary purification. Flying might represent the soul breaking free of earthly burdens or an intense longing to escape something in waking life. In Egypt, comprehensive dream books meticulously outlined hundreds of these symbols. Dreaming of drowning might signal an impending emotional storm. Seeing oneself blind could foretell a spiritual awakening or a painful truth that was hidden in plain sight. These were not random guesses. They were essential parts of a vast, ancient language of symbols, carefully refined over countless generations. In Greece, Artemidorus of Daldis compiled the Oneirocritica, a monumental 5-volume manual dedicated to dream analysis. He powerfully emphasized that dream interpretation was not universal. Context was everything. A farmer dreaming of a flood had a very different meaning than a sailor dreaming the same thing. The Oneirocritica is one of the earliest known texts to suggest that personal experience profoundly shapes the meaning of a dream, a remarkably modern idea for the 2nd century CE. Dream interpretation was also intricately linked to wider forms of divination. Dreams were seen as one crucial thread in a complex web of omens, signs, and sacred messages. Dreamers might consult oracles, draw lots, or perform specific ritual offerings to clarify what they had seen in their sleep. Some even kept detailed dream journals, written on papyrus or clay, not just for personal insight but to share with their community. For ancient peoples, symbols were not just subconscious images. They were profound keys, essential components of a divine language that was whispered to them in their sleep. And understanding that intricate language meant unlocking the very will of the gods, understanding the powerful forces of fate, and deciphering the deepest secrets of the soul. To the ancients, a dream was not just a story. It was a profound message that was encoded and sent directly from the stars. Today, we often treat dreams as fleeting fragments, strange images that are quickly forgotten after we wake up, or at best, material for therapists and artists. But to the ancients, dreams were far more than just mental noise. They were sacred, meticulously structured, and deeply respected. They offered vital guidance, profound healing, intimate connection with the deceased, and awe-inspiring glimpses of the divine. Dreams were an essential part of the very fabric of life, seamlessly woven into medicine, religion, and even governmental affairs. So what caused this profound shift? As science and rationalism grew in importance, especially in the post-Enlightenment West, dreams were reclassified. They were no longer considered messages from the gods. They became neurologically explained byproducts, electrical impulses, fragmented memories, or mechanisms for emotional processing. The sacred interpretation became purely clinical. The rich symbolic meaning was reduced to mere chemical reactions. But even now, in moments of profound grief, significant life changes, or deep intuition, dreams continue to have a powerful hold on us. We still instinctively search them for meaning. A dream of a lost loved one can bring unexpected closure. A recurring nightmare can powerfully reflect underlying stress or a difficult truth we stubbornly refuse to face in our waking lives. Modern psychology, starting with the pioneering work of Freud and Jung, tried to reclaim some of that ancient understanding, recognizing that dreams undeniably have immense power, even if we no longer explicitly call it divine. What the ancients intuitively understood is that the dream world is not separate from waking life. It is a profound mirror, reflecting not only our deepest fears and desires but something far larger, something eternal and cosmic. Whether it was a god speaking from the darkness, a crucial warning about tomorrow's impending storm, or the comforting voice of a parent who had long since been buried, dreams offered something that society could not provide during waking hours: a profound conversation with the unknown. And perhaps that is precisely what we have lost: the humility and openness to listen to what our sleep might be earnestly trying to tell us. Across the vast expanse of time and diverse civilizations, one unwavering belief remained constant: dreams are not random. They are powerful doors. And the fundamental question is not whether they are real. It is whether we are willing to bravely walk through them. In every ancient temple, every sacred scroll and clay tablet, we hear the same persistent whisper: pay attention, close your eyes, not to forget the world, but to truly understand it. Because in the profound silence of night, when the incessant noise of the waking world finally fades, we might just perceive what the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Greeks already knew: that dreams are not just echoes of the mind. They are the very language of the soul.